Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today's video is going to be on 16 end time events that I believe you should know about. Here we go. The first one is going to be the 7-year tribulation. I talked on that in my last video. We know there's going to be a 7-year tribulation because of Daniel 9:27. I'll put all the verses on the bottom. I'll also give you this nice little timeline that I've put together, and it's just a proposed timeline. It's just kind of where I'm sensing all these events will be going in regards to that 7-year tribulation. All right, so the next event that's going to happen is there will be a temple that gets built in Jerusalem. And I see that happening right there before the 7 years or right on the onset of the 7 years. Scripture says that the Antichrist will stand in the temple of God, saying that he is God. Therefore, a temple needs to be built. Third, we got the Antichrist. And obviously, he's going to be brewing right around this time as well. And he's also going to have someone with him named the false prophet. Okay, and so I see them, again, all happening right there on the onset of the 7 years. You can learn more about the Antichrist and the false prophet in Revelation 13. The next event will be the covenant. So the Antichrist is going to sign a covenant with many for 7 years. He's going to make this covenant right here on the onset of the 7 years. In Daniel 9:27, it says, "And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week." 1 week can mean 7 years. But then halfway through, he's going to break that covenant. And something called the abomination of desolation is going to take place. And we'll talk about that in a second. It's very, very important. But back to the beginning of the 7 years, I see, like I mentioned, we got that temple getting built. We have the Antichrist coming up, the false prophet, and we have that covenant being signed. Now, something else I see happening right here at the beginning of the 7 years, or even before it, I mean, technically I see it now, is something called the harlot of Babylon. Revelation 17 and 18 is going to talk on this. I'd get familiar with this. From my perspective, the harlot of Babylon is going to be an evil economic and religious system. And she's going to be manifesting before the 7 years. I see her definitely present at the beginning of the 7 years. I see her falling to a degree actually right here. Okay, so we got to talk a little bit about, we're going to have to talk a little bit about the abomination of desolation to kind of make sense on why I feel this economic system is going to be falling right around here. So the abomination of desolation is going to be when the Antichrist says that he is God in the temple of God. And I'll put all the verses on this on the bottom. One place that we see that is going to be in, I didn't have it down here. I believe it's 2 Thessalonians chapter, it's 1 or 2. I'll put it all on the bottom. But it literally says that the Antichrist will say that he is God in the temple of God. Jesus mentions the abomination of desolation in Matthew 24, verse 15. He says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, standing in the holy place, then he's going to tell you what to do when you see it. More so the Jewish people. So he says, when you see it, and he's really talking to like Israel, he's like, you need to flee to the mountains. Something that's going to be happening with this abomination of desolation is going to be not only the Antichrist saying that he is God, but there will be an image of him being set up, and it's going to be mandated to like worship it. And if you don't worship it, you're going to get killed. The mark of the beast I see is happening right around this time too. So if the Antichrist is going to really be starting to heavily rule, and he's saying that he is God, he cannot have any other system in place because it's going to disrupt him. And so that's why I see that harlot of Babylon falls right before the abomination of desolation. So again, go read Revelation 17 and 18, and that's going to help you out. All right, the next thing I see happening is there's going to be a 10-nation confederation. And I know this is a lot of information. So if this is the first time you've ever have looked at end time events, you're probably like, oh my gosh, fire hydrant hose. It's okay. We can go super slow. If there's any of these things you want me to go in depth with, just let me know. But this is just a wide overview. So in the book of Revelation and in the book of Daniel, it's going to be talking about there's these 10 kings. And I see these 10 kings as a 10-nation confederation, also known as a revived Roman Empire. I see them potentially even getting brewed right now, okay? And as we get closer to the 7 years, they're going to be, I see them just being more just connected and more established. 3 of these kings are going to actually die. I see that more happening over here before the abomination of desolation. But there's definitely going to be, from my perspective, a 10-nation confederation. I see it brewing at the beginning of the 7 years, but throughout the 7 years as well. So we talked on that abomination of desolation. Let's just go more in depth with that. So there's a 7-year tribulation, and I really see the beginning of it is this time of peace and safety. The Antichrist signs this covenant. Everything's going well. Everyone's thinking this Antichrist is a great guy, but he is not. He is not. And as Christians, we're going to be wanting to proclaim that, no, this man that has signed this covenant with Israel and other nations, I know he looks good, but he's not. And so we're going to have this time of peace. Us Christians will be speaking out. I don't necessarily think it's going to be very peaceful for us because we're going to get backlash because we're saying that this man's not good. Well, halfway through, he breaks that covenant. Okay, he breaks that covenant. Something that scripture says in the book of Daniel is that he takes away sacrifice and offering. So for him to take away sacrifice and offering, sacrifices and offerings need to be occurring. So again, that's why there's going to be that temple over here at the beginning of the 7 years. And I believe why he's taken away that sacrifice and offering is because he is saying that he is God. There's no need to have sacrifices and offerings if he is God. Now, part of you is probably thinking, well, actually, we don't sacrifice anymore. But Jesus, he's the perfect lamb. He's a sacrificial lamb. Why would there be sacrifices going on and offerings? Because the Judaism faith is heavily into the Mosaic law. They don't think Jesus come yet, so they're really wanting a temple and they're really wanting sacrifices and offerings. And that's why we want to pray for Israel. We want to pray for those who are heavily in that Old Testament, that they realize Jesus has come. He has come. So, because we don't want them to be deceived by the Antichrist. So back to that abomination of desolation. The Antichrist will say that he is God in the temple of God. He'll take away sacrifices and offerings. The image of the beast will get implemented. The mark of the beast will get implemented, and it's just not good. I'll just go ahead and put an A right here. This is key. As we talk about this timeline and you get this little guy, we need to understand that a lot of this right now is just proposed. Some of it though is concrete, okay? Like the abomination of desolation this is firm. This would be a puzzle piece that we glue on the cardboard because this is not moving, okay? There's some other pieces though that we're like, we're not exactly sure. So I always think of the end times as a jigsaw puzzle. And we have to have grace with each other as we're trying to figure it out and pray through it. And we're not going to have it completely figured out until crap's hitting the fan. Okay, so the image of the beast, the mark of the beast, is talked about in Revelation 13. I'd get very, very familiar with that chapter. I believe that, I don't think I did mention this, but the image of the beast is going to breathe. It's going to speak. I mean, crazy. The mark of the beast will get implemented. If you don't have the mark, it'll be very difficult you won't be able to buy food. As Christians, we do not want to take the mark of the beast. We do not worship that image of the beast if we are here. And I do believe we will be here. We need to not bow down to the Antichrist, nor his decrees or whatever he's doing. We worship Jesus and we ask the Lord to provide for us. And I really believe he will. All right, so the next event I see happening are going to be the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. These are going to be plagues that are on the Antichrist. And if the Antichrist hasn't done anything wrong yet, I have a hard time seeing the seals and the trumpets and the bowls happening before he takes off that mask. Okay, so I'm placing those seals, those trumpets, and those bowls going to be over here. Technically, the seals here, the trumpets here, and the bowls actually after. I'm going to put it after the 7 years, because when you read Revelation, these seals, these trumpets, these bowls, I believe happen in order. And it does say that Jesus comes back on the 7th trumpet. Yay. So we can talk more about the plagues if you want in another video. Now we've got our 2 witnesses. That's a firm thing. They're going to be witnessing for 1,260 days. I believe that's what scripture says, or scripture says 42 months. I forget. But whenever you see 1,260 days or 42 months, or even time and a half a time, they're always zoning into the last 3.5 years of that 7-year tribulation from my perspective. I did a video on that just a couple days ago, and you can go check it out. I'll put it in the description. So we have 2 witnesses prophesying from my perspective right here in that last 3.5 years. Then I see Jesus coming back and the rapture all at the same time. My next video will hit home on why I believe we will be going through the 7 years and Jesus is going to be coming at the end, and why I think the rapture is just simultaneous with Jesus coming back. Now, if that wasn't a lot, I'm giving you so much information. The Battle of Armageddon will be taking place after the 7 years. So Daniel is going to talk about a 30-day time period after the 7 years. And he's actually going to talk about another 45-day time period. And as of now, I am placing the Battle of Armageddon. I'm going to place it, I'll do a different color just because there's a lot of black. I'm going to put that Battle of Armageddon right here around this, maybe at that 30-day mark, not exactly sure. That abomination of desolation does get cleansed right here. So you probably can't see it all. There we go. Not like you can even read my chicken scratch. But that abomination of desolation does get cleansed here. That's for sure. We could glue that piece on the cardboard as well if this was a puzzle. All right. The good thing is with that Battle of Armageddon, the outcome is the Antichrist and false prophet get killed. So amen. Daniel does say, blessed are you who how did he say it? Blessed are you who, was it remains? Or blessed are you who, let's just say remains to the 45-day period. And so it's very interesting. It's like, oh, what's going to be happening right here? And maybe in Matthew 25, we see Jesus judging the nations. And so maybe he's judging the nations right there. Not exactly sure. Maybe that Battle of Armageddon is over here. And so that's why he's saying that blessed are you who waits. That's what it is. Blessed are you who waits. So I'm not really sure. That's why this is a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, and we just kind of move things around. But guaranteed, all of these things are going to happen. And why I create a timeline, and then we'll end with Gog and Magog, why I've created this like proposed timeline is because when we are studying these events, it's nice to place them somewhere, or they're just all scattered, like all over the place. And so that's why I do a timeline, a proposed timeline. Now, the last thing I'm going to hit home on is Gog and Magog. This is going to be like my mama bear. This is what I'm teaching on in the months ahead. And so you'll have a lot of videos about this. In a nutshell, I see Gog as the Antichrist, and Magog is going to be pretty much the land that he comes from. Ezekiel 38 and 39 is going to heavily hit home on this. And I see Ezekiel 38 and 39 is going to be the rise of the Antichrist and the fall of him. So this Gog and Magog, I really see happening. I mean, it's going to be brewing over here. I see heavy emphasis of this happening right here, because it does say how Gog is going to be coming up to Israel when she's at peace. And so I think that is going to happen right here. And then eventually there's going to be a battle and whatnot. And so I see the remaining parts of Ezekiel 30 and 39 happening out throughout the rest of the 7-year tribulation. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm really excited to study this and teach on this. And hopefully you're not too overwhelmed. Okay, guys. God bless.